Hey everybody! Just so you know, I do have more latency on this screen. I got my camera working, hopefully. If it's not working, if there's an awful delay, then I'm sorry. I will try to see if I can work that out before next time. But I did that, and then the other thing, so whenever I'm interacting with you, there's going to be like a longer delay, which I'm hoping is going to make the stream smoother. Then the other thing is obviously I have my camera, and then we'll see how this goes, because last time I didn't have a camera and that made it a little more complicated and a little less complicated. I fixed my keyboard shortcuts. If you remember last time, every time I pressed the letter F, it would go black because it was supposed to go to this view with the full screen camera, and I didn't have my camera, so it would just go to black. I fixed that. For one thing, because I have my camera, so it won't go black. But for another thing, I'm no longer using F because that's ridiculous. I use that key too much. So we're going to do F5. I'm getting notified again that YouTube isn't receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming, which is really frustrating. So I might have to disconnect the camera to fix that, but we'll see if it gets better or if it's okay or what. And I know there's going to be an awful delay, but if you can let me know in the chat, like, if it's okay or what's going on, that would be lovely. So, last time I did a stream, which was 2 weeks ago, I started building a new show file in Grandma 3 version 2.4, and today I'm just going to keep doing that. It's going to be pretty chill. I know I've already gotten the comments that somebody is actively programming while watching the stream. That's awesome. Let's do it together. And then also there's a bit of lag and delay. Okay. Yeah, and it probably won't look as bad also when I'm using well, maybe it will, maybe it won't. When I'm showing the screens as opposed to my face, like at least you won't be seeing me be glitchy. Maybe it'll be less annoying. Okay, I hope it gets better. So, what was I saying? So I started working on a show file. I'm going to keep working on a show file. It gets really distracting trying to work on that and focus on that while talking to you guys. But feel free to say stuff in the chat. I will probably try to ignore it when I'm focusing on things, but then I'll come back to it and I'll try to answer questions. So, all of that is to say, let's orient ourselves over here. So let's see. On this screen, I currently just have a sequence pool kind of set up here. Or not a sequence pool, a sequence sheet. Nothing's happening there. I haven't built any views. One of my objectives today is to get some views created. On this screen, I have my groups pool. I've created a bunch of groups. I think I've created all of the groups I need. And then for some reason I have a special dialog here. I think I just opened that because I was checking something the other day in the show file. And then I have my 3D view here, and I was playing with it to show you. I was playing with it in order to make something for a thumbnail. Also, why do I feel like it's not properly calling my camera? Because I definitely did not save my camera in this state, so it shouldn't look like that. Okay, I think we're straight on now. And then over here on screen 4, I have my selection grid, and I like to keep that up there because that way I can see kind of what's going on. So I have my selection grid, I have my 3D view, and that's kind of how I work. And then with my main sequence sheet over here on the one I primarily kind of focus on, and then presets and things on this one. So hopefully all my shortcuts are working great and it's changing screens properly. There's such a delay, it's hard for me to check that. But I'm planning to get a Stream Deck also. I know we talked about that last time. This is temporary. I have ordered a Stream Deck. I'm not sure when it's arriving, but I should have that for the next stream, so I'm looking forward to that. And now I have a little list of things kind of in my head. I should have written it down. I meant to write it down. I write down so many things. I have like a ton of pieces of paper with notes written down. I did not write it down, but I have a list in my head, kind of generally, of things that I need to do today. So one of those things is I'm going to go into the patch and I'm going to, oh, yeah, also this. I hope I'm on the right screen. Okay. So I don't know how this happened. Genuinely, I'm so confused. I don't know when or how, but somehow I have Lua code in my names for some of my fixtures. And I did not do this, and I don't know how it happened. So I'm going to fix that. I don't even know what that code is doing. I've never seen that code before. But then the other thing is, I noticed that my fixtures are oriented like super, super weird in the 3D view. Maybe it wasn't these ones. No, maybe they're fine in 3D and they're not fine in my selection grid. I'm gonna double check. I'm gonna double check everything here in the patch, but okay, those are all reasonable. All right, so it's not the patch then. It is my selection grid. I believe that is the problem. Also, this orientation with the pixel bars, I realized isn't that great because, let me show you. This screen. So if I turn on my pixels, that was one of the things on my list to do. I turned them on and you can't see them, and I will show you why in a minute. But if we're facing straight on, they're not all really visible, so I don't want to have this many pixel bars laid out this far apart out to the sides like that. So I think I'm going to change this design, but I'm not going to do that right this second because the other thing is this over here. So my second screen is going to be the place to show you this, and I think I started to record a video on this as well, but my pixel bars right now, I fixed the thing in the patch with like the sub-fixture stuff and made sure that I had individual control of the fixtures. However, when I turn them on, they are not on. They did not come on. Dimmer's at 100, they didn't come on. There's two possible things that could be happening. One possible thing that could be happening is if the main fixtures, so these are the pixels, right? But if the main fixtures are set to 0, then that would override. How did I number these? I don't remember. Okay, they're 301 through, okay, so let's see, like if I do 301, if this was set to 0, that would override, but that's not the case in this case, obviously. So what's actually happening is the color is set to 0 on everything. You can see that brightness is 0 here. And then as soon as I turn that up, I think I'll put quality at 100 too. As soon as I turn that up, now they're on, and they're extremely bright because they're facing straight at the camera, but they're on. So what I need to do to make sure that they will turn on every time I turn them on is I'm going to deactivate this, and I'm going to store these. They should technically be hundreds. I'm just going to store these values at default. That way they're going to default to bright open white, and I'm going to do that by typing store default, and that stores the active values as the default for the fixture. You can also do this in the patch, but it's a lot more complicated. This is so much easier. And then we're going to choose merge, and now when my keyboard shortcuts are off, when I select my pixels and set them at 100, they turn on immediately, and these default values are knocked in. So that's something that can be super useful, not only for like if you're doing something like this where the fixture profile was built in a way that doesn't work well. You can also use that stored default to your advantage in cases where like the white that is the default doesn't look white. You can adjust it to how you want it and store that as the default. You can use it to, maybe if you have key light fixtures, store them at a default value for color temperature so that you don't have to change it every single time, and you don't risk, like if they're dedicated key lights, you don't risk them being at the wrong color temperature. So there's lots of uses for that. You can change the default position, you can change anything. So that's super helpful. I'm gonna catch up on these comments. So I got a hi, well hello, another hello, hello everybody, and somebody locked themselves out of a building. How did you do that? And what building? That doesn't sound good. Are you at work right now? Or like what? Okay. So where am I? So that was one of the things on my mental to-do list. By the way, physical notes work a lot more effectively than mental ones, and I don't remember what else I was going to do. Oh, selection grid, yes. So, selection grid, not this one, the grid one. All spots grid. Something was wrong with this. I don't know what it was. That's weird because it looks right now. Well, the one thing that's wrong is this group is called All Spots Grid, and it's only my air spots. So that's wrong. But these all look right. Was I hallucinating? I swear I was looking at this show file the other day, and I was like, oh, all my fixtures are in the wrong places. And that does not appear to be true anymore. So I'm totally confused. The grid is so powerful. Yes, it absolutely is. It's more powerful when you set it up correctly, but mine looks right, so okay. I just don't get the z-axis. I agree. I think it would be useful for actual, I don't know, like really complex setups where you have a need to use 3 dimensions. I know Araya made a course, which is really expensive. I'm sure it's worth it, but it's more money than I can spend right now, about like using the selection grid for more complex pixel programming workflows. And she had, in her promo video, it looked like she was using all 3 axes, and it looked really complicated. So that's definitely, I'm not the expert on that. She's the expert on that. I haven't used the selection grid that much, but I guess there must be a use for it. Keep crushing it out there. Thank you. Oh, Michael, that's so cool. The z-axis puts fixtures on top of each other. Yes, but like also you can, well, I guess if you're explaining what it does. As far as, no, wait, are we good? I think it looked like the stream stopped for a minute, like the encoder stopped connecting, but now it's back. I hope my kitten didn't do it. My kitten was on my desk, and he might have touched something. Did you touch something? This is Derek, by the way. He is probably going to sit on my lap. So, hey from London, I'm thinking about buying an MA3 Lite, one-man business, but hoping it would go on tour and also could offer my services as an op with a desk. Yeah, that's a great idea. If I could afford it, I would buy one too. Thank you for your great content. Well, thank you. I'm so glad it's helping. I was in the middle of talking about something before I got distracted by the stream stopping, wasn't I? Oh, z-axis. You have a lag on the video, but the audio is good. Okay. Well, I guess it would be nice if I could find a way to fix that, but I certainly can't midstream. 40K? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that either 40 or 50K. As far as the price of the MA3 Lite, I'm assuming that's what we're talking about. So, z-axis, you can phase stuff on the z-axis. You can change fade data on the z-axis too. So I guess if you had like multiple layers of fixtures, you could have them turn on from front to back, and that could be pretty cool. It could be really fun if you had like a circular stage where you had stuff going out in all directions. It sounds really complicated, and I don't know that I particularly want to work on something like that because that sounds really crazy. But I think that could be a use for the z-axis. AV is not synced. Yeah. You're getting a new what? Derek, be nice. Don't be in the middle of my video, please. Alright. I'm gonna go back to programming. So, my groups are good. The next thing I'm gonna do is create some views. So, I'm gonna go over here and I'm afraid my cat is going to be on top of my keyboard. So, okay, so I'm gonna need my groups pool in here. And, well, so here's where it gets complicated. And I've tried a number of different ways of doing things, of like, how do I have my groups and presets views laid out? And I haven't found a singular best way of doing it. Oh dear, it's being all laggy again. Well, no, Derek can be in the video. He just can't be controlling the video. He can't be on the keyboard. But I'm concerned. I'm going to try turning my camera off because I think maybe that will help with the video quality. So about making sure that the right screen was selected. So I was sitting there talking about what I was doing and y'all were staring at my selection grid the whole time. So that's delightful. Right. So let's see here. Position, gobo. I'm going to want some color presets, but I think I'm going to limit myself on space for those as well. But I'll have the color picker here. And then over here, I will put my beam. I don't need a lot of those. And then focus. I don't need that much of those either. Stop it. And then, actually, I could do that one, so, yeah. And then, okay. I think you definitely should be hearing me by now. And then I'm gonna put, let's do this pool. And then I'm going to remove the tabs because I don't want to see them. I'm gonna go to this view and then I'll store this, but I also want to change the colors of these pools. Okay, so you are getting audio. I'm still getting notifications that YouTube isn't receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming, which is a bummer, but hopefully it's at least better than it was. Okay, so now I'm going to pick colors for these, but I'm not going to do it here actually because I'm trying to remember which button. It's not this button. There. Oh, I'm so silly. It's in here, desk lights and color theme. You can edit the color theme and there is a thing for each preset pool now. Pool window. Yes. Here we go. So I'm going to create some different colors for these ones. Preset dimmer. One thing I kind of hate is that all of the all presets are have the same default color. That's annoying, but either way. Also, I think I'm gonna have to close and reopen the things to show these because I don't think that they. I forgot that you could do this because I haven't worked in a version where you could before. What about this color for dimmer? Let's do that. And then position always has to be yellow. It's an MA2 thing. I don't adapt to change very well. That's a nice screen. And then color will be purple because again, MA2. Hey, how are you doing? I am doing great. How are you? I am, okay. To be a little more candid, I'm frustrated because I'm not getting the stream to work as well as I would like to. But, at least the show file's going good. So, we will survive. That's all we need, right? We just need the show file working. I don't use these, so I'm gonna, oh wait, I use focus. What am I talking about? I like blue. That was a little bit of a dumb comment. I like blue. I do like blue. And then all will be red. Don't laugh at me for just setting it all up the same as MA2. I don't remember what color dimmers were in MA2 because I never used the dimmer pool at all. And it looks like I do in fact have to reopen these in order for it to show the new colors. I'm so happy though that we do have the option to set those globally though, so that every time you open it, it will be different rather than just only having to save it in every view, because that's a new thing. It came out in version 2.3, but I never really used 2.3, so I'm just absolutely thrilled with that. Okay, so this is going to be my view. I may change it later, but this is what I got. And then I will create one for phasers, because when I'm programming, I'm going to use this view for my main look, and then I'm going to go into another view for my phasers, and I'm going to use some of my all pools for this. So like this one is going to be, let me rename it. This one will be like full looks, and then I'm gonna make one with using some other pools. So I'll store these here, and then for my dimmer position and color, maybe focus, I will create phasers in a separate pool. I haven't decided entirely how I'm going to do that. I think I'll have one for universal presets, universal phasers, and then I'll use this view for creating my phasers, and then I'll have a different one later for like actually using them. Universal phasers, then I'm gonna have what do I want to call this? I know I want it to be for phasers that I use all the time. I'll call it generic phasers. I might change that name. I don't know. Hello from Brazil. Well, hello. I have family from Brazil. I have, obviously I'm not Brazilian, but my uncle married a Brazilian, and so I have a bunch of cousins that are all fluent in Portuguese and all that stuff. So I'm gonna call this one building phasers, and then I'm gonna do, let's see, I'm gonna be super nitpicky and change the colors of these because I don't like this. These ones are gonna be green because recipes. Wait, but recipe phasers are a thing now and they're purple. I don't know. Okay, so that's another thing, actually. About this whole new show file in version 2.4 thing, I have to figure out how I'm going to integrate recipe phasers in my show file. And I haven't figured that out yet, so I'm going to be figuring that out in real time with y'all. Because if you watch my video on like the new recipe phasers and all that, I understand how they work. And I understand multiple different ways that they could be used. But I haven't yet decided how I'm going to use them. Dimmy Tools show file. I have not seen that. Not sure who that is, but it's cool that he showed you my channel. I have noticed like a So YouTube shows you like in the analytics where a lot of your viewers are from. And Brazil is, I'm pretty sure Brazil is like on the list, because a lot of them, there's a lot of countries, there's a few viewers from those countries, but they're not enough to like make the list. And then I think not everybody, I don't think YouTube knows where everybody is, which sounds really stupid because I think it should, but it shows me that like 3% of my viewers are from the country with the most viewers. And I'm like, yeah, no, that doesn't make sense. But I think I've seen Brazil in the rankings. I know some of the top ones are like Germany, the Netherlands, and the United States. There's another one I'm forgetting. I haven't looked at it in a while. Hello from Turkey. Well, hello. I'm glad you're here. So then I'm gonna make one of these for some more specialized phasers. Oh wait, sorry. This one's for building phasers. I'm gonna make one for using phasers, and that one is going to be probably, I'm gonna want this view. Actually, I'll create that later because I'm gonna want to create that after I've actually programmed some of those things. All right, and then I'm gonna go to this screen. Hello from Belgium. Glad to have you here. Let's see. I saw y'all were doing very good in the World Cup. So, I'm not a soccer person, but in fact, I've never watched a full game in my life, but I was kind of watching the scores of the World Cup more than anything else, because soccer is a big deal in Sweden and my dad is from Sweden, and so I'm very like tied to being involved in Swedish culture as much as I can from the US. So I was just like paying attention to things, right? And for a while Sweden was in, like, they made the knockout part of I guess like the playoffs. I don't know what it's called. Clearly I don't know what I'm talking about, but I was trying to follow that, and then I've been like following how the games are going as all of that is happening, and so I'm paying attention. By the way, question for y'all, is the audio level better? I don't know. I know some of you were here last time. Last time people were saying the audio was really, really quiet, so I gained it up like 9 dB. I would love to know if it's at a good level for you guys. Alright, so I'm going to make this view the way I want, which is going to be, do I really want to, yeah, no, I don't need my executors, because, how did I have this when I was programming before? I'm going to want my recipe editor, I'm going to want my sequence sheet, and trying to decide how much space I want each one taking up. My cat, by the way, I don't know if you can hear him, but Derek is running all over the place and climbing on the back of my chair. So that's exciting. And now his mother is joining him. They're playing. Audio is fine. Awesome. Thank you. All right, what was I doing? Recipe editor. There we go. And then I'm gonna add, I'm thinking, I don't need that much space, so I'm gonna add the encoder bar, the temporary one, because it's customizable. Why am I making a new show file? I'm making a new show file because I have updated to version 2.4 and I wanted to create a new workflow, which I am figuring out in the moment. Also, the purpose of this show file is basically just to experiment with stuff. I will use it for making videos probably, and to make shows in like time codes in 3D specifically. So it's not something that I'm necessarily going to use on any real gigs. I might, I don't know, but so far all of the gigs that I've gotten have been situations where I'm going to run on an existing show file that somebody else has already built. So I I'm expecting that I'm not going to need this a ton. No, you don't need to create a new show file every time. I just want to establish a new workflow because of the new features, because there's so much that's changed. And I've heard that there are some bugs that happen more when you upgrade a past show file than when you are, like when you create a new one on version 2.4. And that's kind of true on a lot of versions to some degree, but it's usually not that bad. And personally, I didn't run into anything so far in using 2.4 with my older show files, but nonetheless, I just feel like it's neater every now and again to make a new one. I don't do it every version by any means. I just think it's a good time to do it now because of the major changes to phasers. So the encoder bar, I like using this encoder bar rather than the one that you can do here. That's the playback bar. My bad. Not the encoder bar. I was trying to put the playback bar here. I got confused about which screen I was using. The other screen has this. So this one, I can like customize it. Also, this one's clickable on the screen, whereas the other one, you can't click on the screen. So I want to restrict this to just being, let's see, maybe row 100 and 200 for now. Well, see, that's the problem though. I want my faders, but they are so small here. The other way you can do it is by removing the labels, and then you have more space here. There is literally so much that you can customize when you open the playback window this way. It's very useful. But let's see. I think that's probably enough if I'm going to use the faders. I don't know if I'm going to use the faders. I can always change what's here too. But I like how I have these buttons. They're not labeled here, which is frustrating. And it's also frustrating that even if you add the labels are up here. And these are just the playbacks, but it's fine. I will go with this for now, but with one change, I'm going to remove the title bar. By the way, whenever you have that being the case, what you can do to access it, if you need to move the window or access the settings or anything, is press Control-Alt on your keyboard or both MA keys on a console. And then I'm going to come in here and go to Sequences. What is this? Looks like there is a single cue here. What does it do? Apparently nothing. Wait, is it empty? Yeah, it's empty. I don't know why I have this here. Whatever. And I think this is a good view, so I'm going to store this. This is my sequence. So I like to have my sequences down in here so that I can click around on them. Also, a relatively new setting that you can have in, since version 2.3, is a pool action. You can change this to anything, and you can also change it specific to an object, if I remember correctly. Maybe it's not in here though. Where would it be? Object action. Yeah, so you can change so you could have it, you could play back from the sequence pool with this. You could even do a temp or whatever. So I like that. So I'm going to keep this here. And then, let's see, what am I going to do now? I'm going to create some presets. So we'll go back over to this screen. And I'm going to need to figure out which groups I want to see here. Probably, and also I'll probably restructure this whole thing very soon. Let's create some dimmer presets. So, basically, I'm going to start with 100. And then, I think I'll do steps of 20. Thoughts on standard recipe and phaser recipe add buttons. If you were talking about these buttons in the recipe editor, I have definitely been using them. Maybe not this one. I think because I usually use standard recipe. I usually create standard recipes the other way, where you just turn on edit recipe and click, because I think that's easier. Although it's not that much easier now that we have this context area. This context area is the most amazing update to recipes since edit recipe. And I honestly, I think that may change my programming workflow. As I work with it, I may revert to just using the context area and not keeping my pools open as much, because honestly, that's going to save so much on real estate, like screen real estate. So I'll have to use it more and see how I feel about it, but I think that's going to be very nice. Add phaser recipe, I've definitely been using that button. I almost always use it. I love it. So I think everything about this is great. My one complaint is how high you have to have this to see these buttons, because every time when I've been using it, I've had it like this much space, and then I have to scroll in here to get to these. And I do like to use these, but they're so low. So that's one of my problems with the context area of the recipe editor. It's that it's so fixed size. If it was scalable, that would be definitely nicer. The groups colors. Are you talking about these ones? So these are appearances, and let's see. I will open up my appearances pool. What? No. I will open up my appearances pool, and why do I always forget where my appearances are? Make sure we're on the right page here. So I created these appearances, and the way you do it is to have like the center be gray, you just make the image color be gray, which you can do by lowering the brightness, and then you set the background color to what you want. And that creates this like outline. So I did do that in the first live stream also, which you can always go back and watch, although I know it's like however long it is without chapters, and maybe I should go back and make chapters. I think you can after the fact on a live stream. I'm really new to live streams, so there's that. Okay, I'm going to label these, and then we will move on from there. So by the way, I know I'm probably going to get this question, why use dimmer presets? Because honestly, I never used them before. It's so much faster when you're doing the standard method of programming to just make, to just like at whatever in the programmer. But the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm going to use them in recipes. And when you're programming in recipes, you have to use presets. And I find that overall, using recipes is a better workflow. So I will always set things up so that I can use recipes. And that includes this. Now, the decision that I do kind of have to make is if I'm going to put my universal phasers in this pool, or if I'm going to put them in a different one. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, so I'm thinking out loud here. Like I said, I'm figuring out a new workflow because I know that there were holes in my other one, and because there are new opportunities. So if I'm programming in the recipe editor, this is what I'm trying to think through right now. So the plan is I use these presets the way they are when I need stomps. And then I create universal phasers with different values in them. Well, okay, this is how I've always done it in the past. I've created universal phasers with values in them. So like I have a 100 to 0, a 75 to 0, a 50 to 0, etc. I create those phasers, and then I use those to create recipe presets. And then I use those recipe presets in my cues. Awesome, welcome Seagull Infinity. We can program together. So, what was I saying? That was my old workflow. Now that we have phaser recipes, there's a lot of reason to go ahead and try something new. Now, with Speedmasters not being a thing in phaser recipes, I would have to make more changes to my workflow than just using phaser recipes. I would have to pivot to using cue parts as well, which is also something that I've thought about doing. So I think I'm going to go ahead and try playing around with that workflow right now, of using different cue parts for different things. And like I said, that's something I've literally never done before. So one thing that I do know is you can set different preset pools to default to different cue parts. So I could have my dimmer be cue part 1 and my position be cue part 2 and so on. And then I'm trying to think, would I want my dimmer phasers to be in a different cue part than my like static values? And this is one of those things where I know I'm going to try new methods of doing things, and then as I do them, I'm going to see, okay, this works and this doesn't, and I'm going to revise it. But I'm going to try changing this one to 3. Wait, what did I just do? And this one to 4. And I feel like I might hate this because I'm not sure. Because I feel like I won't like having that many different parts to see in every cue. But on the other hand, working with recipes, you have so many different recipe lines anyway. I'm not entirely sure how much difference it makes. So I'm going to try this. And we'll see how it goes. Y'all get to watch me experiment with this. And then, what if I put these in part 0? I'm not going to use these in cues at all, so I'll let them default to part 0, because if I accidentally put them in part 0, then I want to notice them. I mean, if I accidentally put them in a queue, then I want to notice them, which I'll more likely do if they're in part 0. And then this one, these are going to be my main, well, see, I can change that too. Maybe I want separate pools for each type of phaser. So I'm just going to play with this now just to see it, see what my options are. It's kind of funny how we used to have a certain number of all pools, and it was not that many. I mean, it was 1. In MA2, we had 1 all pool. And when MA3 came out, it was like, oh, wow, we have 5 all pools. And now, honestly, I'm already I need 25. Not really, but we get so used to what we have and then always want more. It's kind of problematic. So suppose I had these for different types of phasers. I think I should put my phasers in, I don't know. If anybody has experience using cue parts, I'd be curious to know about your workflow. All 1 generic phasers. Yeah, so I'm using my all 1 for looks that are not phasers. All 2 special phasers. Yeah, so I was thinking about making all 4 special phasers. All 3 gobo. Wait, why not just use the gobo pool for gobo? I'm sitting here waiting on an answer. think about this. All 4 timecode song phasers. Okay, so I would have probably put those in the same category with all 2. Personally, I would just separate them out into a separate section, but gobo matrix with focus, zoom, etc. Okay, but like, you can also set your gobo pool to accept focus and zoom values. You know that, right? Because you can come in here and change the input filter. And if you change it to anything besides the default, then it will accept whatever values you give it in the input filter. I hate how there's so much latency on the screen, on the stream, that every time I talk, it takes like 30 seconds for you to even hear me, and then you have to type out an answer. and then once I see your answer, then I say something, and then it takes another 30 seconds. Nested recipe presets. Well, you could do that in the gobo pool too. Assuming we're still talking about gobos with focus and zoom information, you can do that in the gobo pool as well. So, okay. So if I have, so what I'm talking about though at the moment, like what I'm trying to figure out is what cue parts to put different values in. And my thought is that if I create a, you know what, I'll just program an experimental cue just to see how I feel about it. So, that's so weird though, because I have like nothing set up here. I will think about it a little bit more. So if I have a cue part for each type of attribute, and then I have a separate one that has like more values, that makes sense. I'm trying to decide if I should have a cue part for like all phasers, or maybe I should have one for absolute phasers and one for relative phasers. That kind of makes sense. I think I might do that. I wonder, that's not helpful. Wait, why did it select that? Oh, it's because I have the recipe editor active. I'm like, that's not, there's nothing there, but that doesn't matter. Still wanted to do something with it. So I can change the part here. If I put this in part 10, for instance, and then I store it here, then there's nothing about that that's saved in the preset. Oh, I can change this, but I have to manually go change it. And then if I go to store this one in a queue, oh, I also realized I was forgetting to change my views back and forth. But if I go store this in a queue, wait, it went into part 0. Why did it go into part 0? I suppose, well, it makes sense because this is the recipe editor. And no, that doesn't make sense. I don't get it. Because why did the other one work and this one didn't? Okay, so I'm reading your comment about the gobo 1, 2, 3, 4, focus on gobo wheel 1 and 2 and all that. I can see what you're saying, but also I don't understand how that means that you couldn't still store in the gobo pool by changing the input filter. Like, you don't have to dedicate an all pool to that, right? That's the part that I'm not getting. So, alright, so I'm trying to figure this deal out. I'm gonna come over here. So the part I don't get is I selected this, it went into part 1. But, stop. If I select this one, it goes into part 0, even though the preset is set to Q part 10. I wonder if it would just do part 10 for regular values and not recipe values. And if it would be any different if I did it like this. Yes, now it went into part 10. Also, I kept forgetting to switch back and forth between my screens again. Delightful. So sorry about that. So I probably need, I think what I'm trying to accomplish is let me go back to the right screen. I need a pool for absolute phasors and a pool for relative phasors. I think that's going to be how I'm going to do this. I'm again not thinking about phasor recipes. I need to think about phasor recipes. Because if I'm doing all of this, then I don't need the universal phasors. That's what I don't need. Because if I am creating the phasors in phasor recipes rather than just adding a matrix to my universal phasors, then I don't need the universal phasors because I can just use my regular presets. Honestly, I don't even have to have all of the presets. I don't need to create presets for all of the values that I might need. I only need to create presets that I'm going to actually use as such because, well, it's still smarter to create presets for the steps of the phasor as well because they should track and update. I should probably verify that. So if let's see here. Alright, I'm going to create a phasor recipe. Add phasor recipe. Let's do all spots. Hello? All spots. Why isn't that working? Oh, is it because that? No? Maybe? What's wrong? Okay. I think it glitched out because of the fact that I had edit recipe selected. That's kind of weird. Alright, and then shape. Let's just do a sign. Let's give it a dimmer attribute. And let's do presets for these. See how fast this context area makes things literally insane. Alright, okay. So now I'm going to store this right here. And now I'm going to go edit these. By the way, if you're using keyboard shortcuts, the letter U is a shortcut for update. So that's helpful. Why? Okay, because I gave this a name, but it's at 80%. So, yeah, so it tracks into the presets and everything. That's good news. I also definitely need this one to be at 100. Okay. So I think that's going to be what I'm going to do. I'm not going to have a universal phasors pool at all anymore. I'm going to call this one absolute phasors, and I'm going to let it be red. How do you set it back to... I think I have to delete and reopen the window to set it back to the default. Okay. And then this one is going to be relative phasors. Yes, I did them in this order because I can't handle relative being before absolute because absolute has to be first. It's just one of those things. That's just how my brain works. So we've got that, and then this one is not going to be green. This one is going to be pink, like the relative color. I think that's a pretty good match. I think I'll change the name of this. Let's do just phasors. I might want my recipe editor. Oh, hi, Misty. Misty is my other cat, by the way, Derek's mom. She is a Siamese, and you can't see her now because I stopped using my camera, but she's now in my lap. She has blue eyes. She's so pretty. Okay. So I have presets. I have phasors. And this will be the view that I'll probably use when using my phasors. Oh, that's another thing I should try actually, since I'm here. Let's create a... I'm going to delete this. I'm going to put my recipe editor here for the moment. So I want to try something. Phasor recipe, all spots, shape, I don't really care. Dimmer, 100, 0. What was I trying again? Oh, yes, I remember. Okay. I am going to store this right here. And then... Also, why did it do 0/100? When the 100 value came first? Didn't the 100 value come first? Yes. The 100 value is step 1. Why did it label it that way? That's weird. Okay, I want to create this as a recipe template. Alright. Now, I'm going to click on this. So now this goes in here and I can store it in my queue. But what that will do is it will mean that there's no actual reference to this preset, which could be good or it could be bad, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Store queue. By the way, the shortcut for that is S and then Alt-C. So this one then is on its own and it's not referencing that one. So the alternative, so I like that because I like the idea of putting this one, like having the phasor recipe directly in my queue, which the only really easy way to do that is actually, okay, that's not true. There's a couple easy ways to do that. This is one way, using a recipe template. The other way would be somewhat easy if you use a shape as a if you use a shape with most of your values in there by default, then I'd actually be curious to see if updating shapes tracks into phasor recipes that have been stored. I will test that next. Let me get to this comment. How do you feel about MA2 in general? Is MA3 better? Why? How? Some LDs I talk to tell me that MA2 was a more perfected software and 3 feels unfinished to them. So I learned on MA2 to start with. You may know that already. But I learned on an MA3 console running mode 2. And then since then I have also used MA2 hardware. And my opinion is MA3 is definitely better. it's much faster and easier to use, especially on PC. I had tried to use MA2 on PC for some things when I first started, and it was so difficult to get around. Like, it is not designed for use on PC. MA3 is so customizable on PC, and it's like clearly designed to be functional for that, which I really, really appreciate. That's one major part. Another major part is you have a lot more flexibility with phasers, with the number of steps that you can create. And I know that you've probably heard that a lot, and it's like, yeah, but it's like really hard and simple things are harder. That's true to a degree. It's less true at this point now that we have phaser recipes. But at the same time, yes, I can see why people are saying that, but I also feel like the potential is so much more. And then like the selection grid, that was such a huge benefit to MA2 over MA3, or sorry, to MA3 over MA2, that it just opens up a whole new world of possibilities. Even just from a basic workflow thing, swipies, not swipies, yes, it's called a swipey, this function where you can do this. It makes things so much faster, especially on PC. All of the gestures that MA3 has, things like 2-finger click, going back to an MA2 after using that, it feels so slow. It feels like pulling teeth because Grand MA3 makes things so user-friendly. And I think that all by itself is a huge help because the faster you can do things, the more you can do, the more money you can make. Like, that's how it works. Time is money, and being able to do things quickly is really, really helpful. So I feel like the software is more powerful. Also, there's more, it's easier to do things more quickly. It's way better on PC. The Grand MA2 consoles were also really difficult. Like, the screens were hard to handle. Once I used it in MA2, it was like, this screen is so unresponsive. I hate this. That's kind of a small petty thing, but either way, I think the MA3 software is way better. It also looks better. It just looks more aesthetic, more visually pleasing. And I think that's a controversial statement. I'm not entirely sure why. The font on MA2 is so weird. It felt like it was kind of straining on your eye. The phaser UI is cumbersome. Yeah, it kind of is. I think they could have done better with it. I also think that they are making improvements though, so we'll see where that goes. As far as your other question about MA2 being a more perfected software and 3 feeling unfinished, yeah. I actually just recently learned some new insight into why that would be, I think it was yesterday. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So apparently the Grand MA2 screens were breaking and the consoles were becoming unusable because they didn't have a way to, they didn't sell the screens separately or something. I don't know. So what they were having happen was people couldn't buy Grand MA2 consoles anymore, and because of the quality, because of the fact that they were falling apart, they were getting old. And they released Grand MA3 before it was entirely finished because that was the only way that they could sell anything. I don't know if that's related to why it has the MA2 software and parameters built in as well, but either way, I think they probably released MA3 before they were ready because the MA2 was falling apart, which is kind of sad. But then the other thing is, I don't know about you, I don't know about the other people that you've been talking to, but I think a lot of us that are in the industry now weren't using Grand MA2 when it first came out. And so by the time I started using Grand MA2, it had been 15 years, I think, since the software was released. So yeah, it had been perfected in a lot of ways that MA3 hasn't, simply because it's newer. And as somewhat of a software developer, you could almost say, myself, I don't actually design apps from the ground up, but I've built plugins. I can tell you, your first prototype is obviously a first prototype. Like, it's lacking a lot of things, has some bugs. You make a second, you make a third, you make a fourth, and you might have it working perfectly in the state that it's in, and you're like, okay, I can release this, but then later you figure out ways to do things better. And so the longer you keep working on improving something, the better it's going to get. And that's why MA2 after 15 years is certainly not the same experience as MA3 after, 10. It hasn't even been 10 years since it was released. I think it was released in 2018. I'm not entirely sure. Or 2020, something like that. So 6 or 8 years. And then on top of that, they started releasing it before they were entirely ready to, perhaps. So I think it has a lot more potential, but yes, it's unfinished. And I wouldn't say that it's still unfinished. It felt really unfinished to me when I first started using it, which was 1.8. And I know that it was even worse before that, so I can't even imagine. But it's, yeah, we're still getting there. It feels very, very usable to me. It doesn't feel unfinished to me anymore, although it does seem like they can still make some more improvements. So I'm very good at just talking and talking and talking. That's why I have a YouTube channel. I'm kidding. But not. So now that I have been all over that rant, I'm going to go back to working on this. So what was I doing? Right. Okay. I was going to play with shapes. So I'm going to come over here and where did they put the shapes pool? Here. I forget what's a data pool and what's simply a pool because I cannot honestly tell what the difference is supposed to be. So if I create a new shape and I put in some default values, so literally you could use these as a template. You could, if you put all of your, like you could create a shape for, you could create a shape for 100 to 0 and one for 80 to 0 and 60 to 0 and so on, like whatever values you want. Those aren't usually the ones I do. I'm just spitting out numbers. And then one with like speed setting, etc. Like technically you could make this be like your template phaser. And then I don't want to change any of that. So if we have this is a complete phaser right now, basically. We just need a what's the word? I don't know. A group. Go back to my other screen. So add a phaser recipe. I'm going to use my test shape and then, oh wait, I completely forgot, like putting phase in there. Well, this is perfect for testing. I'm going to store this in my queue. So now I'm going to go look at, see what happens if I edit this at this point. So if I go in here and where is it? You can do phase values in here, right? I thought you could. I thought you could do, why am I thinking that? No, this is all we have. Yes? Yes. Okay, never mind. So I don't know what I'm talking about. That's the bottom line. So let's say now I change this to 50. I want to see, does that track into my thing here? It does. Okay. So that's interesting. So now I need to take that into account. Oh, I forgot to go back to the screen where you could see that. So it actually changed this to 50 because of the fact that it's referencing that shape. So changing the shape changes the phaser recipes that are referencing it. That's interesting and very powerful. Now, basically, what I have to decide is, do I want to create template recipes, which then there's no reference. I'm pretty confident of that. I'll go back in here and I'm gonna go back in here and edit this just to like verify that for certain, but yeah, no reference. So I can create template recipes, which makes programming pretty easy, pretty fast, because I can have my matrix in there, and then whenever all I have to do is click on the preset literally, and then it will put it into my sequence, and I can even create it without the selection, and then I can put the selection in there, and then everything else is already done. Or the alternative is I can create shapes with different values, but then the matrix aren't in there, but I can use the matrix in the matrix pool. So for instance, I'm going to go back over here. I don't need this open at all. Okay, so this is so stupid. This is why I need a Stream Deck. Every time I hit F1 or F2 or F3 or F4, it puts a command in the command line on the MA2 side. And if I disable shortcuts, it does something else. It like changes something on the screen. And I couldn't figure out any way to turn that off. Like I can change the shortcuts, but I can't change what happens when shortcuts are off. So I just need a Stream Deck. I already said this, but if you didn't catch it, I ordered a Stream Deck. It just isn't here yet. So next time. What was I doing? I feel so scatterbrained. I'm not usually like this. It's complicated trying to do a live stream and talk about things at the same time as I'm testing stuff out. So, a matrix, that's what I wanted. I'm going to create an matrix with some kind of random shuffle and fade 3 and phase 0 through 360, and that's a good default. If I have a different one per set of fixtures, then I would want to put speed in as well. I'll have to think about that later. So now I have this one, and so now let's say, I don't know why I did that. I could use the recipe editor on the other page. Recipe editor, phaser recipe, shape, test, selection, all spots. Okay, so we have selection, shape, and then we just need a matrix, shuffle, and that was it. Check this out. I have now my phaser completely built. It was 3 clicks. That's what it was. So the alternative would be that I could, technically I could put, I could create presets with, so there's a couple options, right? I could create a phaser preset, or phaser recipe template, and if I do that, then it takes like 1 click. What does this 1 click do? 1 click, we have our selection. I could have my matrix in there. It just puts my already created phaser recipe in here, and then I can change it if I needed to. So that's 1 click, but no reference. Well, technically references to the presets that are referenced. If the matrix are in a matrix pool object, then it would be a reference to that. And the selection would be a reference. The shape could be a reference. That's probably the best way to do it. So I hope you were following everything that I was saying. If not, basically what I'm thinking is I will create shapes. Actually, I'm still figuring this out. I'm so close though. So you can use presets and shapes. All right. So that that really does it then, because, or let me think about that. Is there an advantage to using different shapes with the presets built in and these values built in compared to just building all of that with the presets directly in the phaser recipe? You have to have a shape anyway. So we would have fewer shapes. But the advantage is it would be easier to build another one of these without using the template recipe. I'm trying to think if that would be helpful compared to just using a template recipe. I think I can't see myself not using a template recipe. So I think what I would do is create my shapes to simply control the shape, like the form and the curve, and it would hold the attribute value. For ease of programming, I will put the attribute values in my shapes. That will make it less clicks. And then speed will not be in there, phase won't be in there. I may put measure, because that way I can restrict it to 2. Wait, do you have measure in shapes? Yes. So I would put the measure of 2. I would have this be the default, but then I would change it in my phaser recipe. And then inside my phaser recipe, I would take this, for instance, and I would connect it with an emimetric object, which would hold the phase, fade, and any shuffle or other matrix values, and speed. So I'd have a recipe line. Okay. So the trouble is, with a phaser recipe, even if you have multiple, so if I create one for my spots and one for my washes with different matrix data, which is what I've done in the past, then when I click on this, I still end up with 2 separate, wait, I had a bunch of, okay. I ended up with both of them going in here, and maybe I don't want both of them. So I would have to either add both the selection and the matrix in here because of the fact that the matrix are based on the selection, or I would have to have separate presets for each type of fixture, which that's not the end of the world, but it's not how I've always done it. So, it is going to be easier to have a template recipe preset than to create my phaser recipes in the queues each time. So, I suppose what I need is a different, On the other hand, if I had a shape for each type of effect and values, and I had a template recipe for each selection and a matrix, then I could, then I could select the template recipe with, so essentially what I would have is this one with this group, and we could give it a default value here, and then in a matrix pool object, label this spots shuffle, and then we will have another one right here that will be a different matrix pool object, but I don't have one created, and there's nothing to change at this point. So I'm just using this as an idea. A spot shuffle and a wash shuffle, and then whenever I'm programming, what I would do is select this, and then I would just come in and change the shape to something that holds. Why isn't it changing? Okay. So then I would change it to something that holds the values for the step 1 and step 2 and all of that information. That actually might be the way to do it. That might be the easiest way to do it. That sounds like a really weird workflow, but I could see that making a lot of sense and really being the easiest option overall. I think that's what I'm going to build off of for right now. I hope this conversation is not boring you guys. I feel like this is just me thinking through everything and I have not figured it out. Well, now I have, but you watched me figure it out. If you actually watched me, which would be somewhat impressive. So I think I'm going to create based off of that workflow. And no, fine, I'll keep this one. So I'm going to go with dim 0 to 100. I always say 0 to 100 even though 100 is the first value, the first step. And then this is a sign. So technically, you know, we could also assign appearances to these shapes and that would make them easier to locate. I may do that later. All right, so we have a dim 0 to 100. Let's go with I mean, I don't like those numbers. I'm gonna create some new presets. Oh, you said we are, but I don't know what you're talking about at this point because I don't even know when you sent it compared to what I was saying. Hopefully you're having fun or something, or you're watching me is probably what you're saying. Okay, so these are the presets I want. Oh, I didn't have that view saved. It's fine. Wash, shapes, okay. I'm going to do 75. Always want everything referencing something. That is the best practice. And then measure 2. It's going over your head? Okay. Well, I mean, you can always rewatch it. I will post this on my channel. At least you'll see the final result, so maybe it will make sense at that point. Hopefully it will still make sense to me at that point. Do you know if MA3 has a window where you can click a preset and see all the recipes that are referencing it all in a list? So I don't know if there's a specific window for it, but you can, there's a keyword that will do it. So if you type, I don't know the shortcut if there's one, so I'm going to type it, list reference, list ref is a shortcut for that, and then you click on, say this, then it pulls up this window. So I don't know if it's a window that you can open any different way, but you can do it this way, so it'll show you what's referenced by, what it depends on, and then note, I'm not sure exactly what that is. I think it's always been empty for me, but, and also I'm not sure what that means, but at any rate, it'll show you a list of these, and then it'll also show you the depth of the reference. So like this one says it's 1 deep, the references, which means this preset is referencing this, which also has references, and then when you click on it, then you can see what is referencing it, and it should be showing that it depends on those other presets, but I'm not sure why. So either way, yeah, so it's showing us that this shape is being used in both of those presets and in this queue. So that should be answering your question. And then, all right, so where are we at? So I'm going to copy these because that's going to be easier. So I'm going to create one that does 50 to 0. And as you can see, there's nothing else that I need to change here except the name. So I can make a bunch of shapes like this. So this is essentially replacing my universal phasers in previous versions. So in previous versions, I created universal phasers that did this, and now they are shapes. That is kind of awesome. They don't have quite as much, well, they have a different set of data. And I think this is going to be a good workflow. Let's do a 25, and then obviously I have to change the name here. And then I'm going to do, I'm going to put this one here. Let's do 100 with a low value of 75. I never use those. Do a low value of 50. And then, oops, I gotta change the name. Dependency tracking is a huge thing in any programming. Absolutely. This is not boring. The new phaser recipes are great for dim effects and flyouts, but I've not found a good way for good looking moments yet. I'm curious how you will solve this. Yeah, I'm curious too. I guess we'll see. So, where are we at? So I'm going to do these, and then I'm going to do another one that will be 125. What? No, we're not doing values, we're doing presets. Okay. I forgot to remove the number 2. Alright. And then the one other I will do is 25 to 75. It's not one I use all the time, but I don't like the way these are laid out. I'm going to change it momentarily. 25 to 75. Okay. This looks good. So I like this layout because, uh-oh, my cat knocked something over. I like this layout because we have 0, 75, 50, 25, and then this column is the same high value, the same low value as this column, or this row, I mean, where we have 25, to 100 and then 50 to 100. So this to me is pretty easy to like track where things are at. And then I'm going to, so these are my dimmers, and then I need to create some for positions and some for colors. I'm trying to decide, I'm not going to do any relative dimmer values. I don't hardly ever use them, so there's really no point. And then, alright, so I'm going to create a, oh wait, but I need to duplicate all of these and make them with different forms. That's what I need to do. So I'm going to copy this, I guess. By the way, if you don't have your keyboard shortcuts on, you can hit the letter T, even just as a shortcut for through, and you don't have to type through. I'm going to do this, and then it autofills. I'm going to put it here. Wait, why did it do that? If I did this one through this one, it should not have copied all of those. I'm glad that it did, but that's weird. Anyway. Well then. I'm going to go edit this one, and the only thing I need to change here is the form. So let's do, there's like a default somewhere, right? I guess I just have to change this to 0. That does it. And then just for cleanliness sake, I'm going to remove these values. Technically, like, they're literally not doing anything anyway because the transition's 0. By the way, if you don't fully understand how the phaser attributes work and all that, transition is whether it's the percentage of the duration of the step that it changes. So 0 is obviously a pop. 100% is it's then 100% of the duration of the step. So if the width of the step was greater than 1, oh, no, not 1.5%. If it was 150, and say, to keep things right, this one's 50%. This is not 100% of a step, it's 100% of the width of this step. So to make this be half of this, you would need to change it to 75. No, sorry. 50% of the width of the step is then going to be the halfway mark here. If you want it to be like 50% of a step, then it would be like 150 divided by 3. No, because right now it's 50%. I know this calculation. It's slipping my mind at the moment. But generally, I think you get the idea. This is the percentage of the width of the step, not this. And I'm going to go back to these being their normal size. By the way, when you have it compressed to 2 measures, like I have it set to 2 measures, and then you give it a width, it does weird things. And it like makes it a weird difference. You are welcome. I enjoy explaining things. So where are we at? So this is what I want for the pop. And then, do you know what I just remembered? I literally just remembered that I should have made all of those dimmers, the sign dimmers, with a wider 0 value so that it would stay off for longer. That's what I was meaning to do. And clearly I did not do it. So the good thing is we can go back and edit them. I'm going to change this to dim 0 to 100 pop. And then now I'm going to, so here's the reason why we do all of this referencing, rather than just building stuff directly into presets. Even if I had created a bunch of presets with this already, like I said, I verified this a minute ago. You watched me do it. If I make changes to the shape, it will track into the presets. So in this case, it doesn't really matter because I didn't make presets, but I can change the widths here and it will do what it's supposed to. So I want to make the 0 value wider. Let's do 125 and this one's 75. And then I want to make this transition happen quicker. So I'm going to do 125 divided by 2. And now this is an even transition here. So this is, because this is half of this width. Because the width of the step is 125, so half of the width of the step is 62.5. It's a little bit weird how it works, but you'll get used to it. So I just need to go apply this math to all of these other ones, and it would have been easier if I had done it on the first one and it had applied to everything I copied, but it didn't, and that's fine. We said 125, 75, and 62.5. Also, how convenient is it that you have a calculator right there in the pop-up? It should be possible to just draw shapes and phases with some one-to constraints for straight lines in the equation workflow rant. Well, yeah, that would probably be nice. I feel like yeah. I mean, I'm the sort of person who will, I'm not thinking about what I'm doing at all, am I? 75, not 25. I am the sort of person who just takes the tools that I have and I will be content with them. So everybody's always fussing about all the things that are missing from MA3, and I'm just like, guys, this is a really cool tool though. So I'm sure you're not wrong, but I just adapt to whatever I have and I'm happy with it. That's just me personally. Which is why you'll literally never hear me talking about the things that are missing until it becomes past tense and I'm like, hey, this is so cool, we never had this and now we have this, isn't this awesome? It'd also be cool if I could like copy certain values from one and then paste them into another, but I don't believe that's possible. Not 0. That's dumb. Okay. So my pops I don't usually leave off for longer. The reason I do it with the signs is because they don't stay off at all. If you just have them be the same width for each one, then what happens is they're always on because they hit 0 and they immediately turn back on. So I extend the width of the 0 step and make this transition shorter just so that they are off for a bit, but with the pops they are already off for a bit, so I leave them that way. I'm going to go through and simply change the transitions on these and their labels. I got a thanks for hanging out live while building. Absolutely. I thought this would be fun. Also, okay, to be honest with you, part of the reason why I'm doing it is to motivate me to work on my show file because I have so many things that are taking my time and like so many things to decide between. What am I going to spend my time doing? And so part of it is like I want to make content at a certain rate, right? Like, yeah, I'm a creator. I should do that, right? But then if I'm working on making content, then I'm not working on doing stuff for like my own show file. And again, this show file doesn't have like a specific purpose for work. I'm not like building it to run an event. If I was going to do that, then I would just get it done. But I'm just doing it for fun. And so I want to do it, but I also want to make content and I can't do both at the same time unless I do it this way. So that's part of the reason why I'm doing it. Oh, I've been forgetting. I was going to remove these values on all of them too. It's helpful to have a neat show file, so I'm going to be that nitpicky about it. Plus, like I said, this is just for fun, so I don't have to have it done by a certain time or anything. I wish you could multi-select these. Why don't they have like a sheet view? They should have a sheet view. Let me get to these comments. Sorry if you've already covered this. I haven't found anywhere which has told me what I want. I made all my views how I want to have them, and then I can export them to a USB. But how when I get to a new desk can I click one import and instantly have all my views populate the sidebar? Sorry, I see you're in the middle of something right now. No, you're fine. I will finish this group of presets really quick, and then I will answer that. Why am I'm supposed to hit remove. Why am I hitting okay. I am not apparently that great at staying focused. Okay. I have this one, and then I will do this one. And change the name. Okay. Alright, so let's see here. This is going to be in and out, I believe. No, my bad. I'm always forgetting like what's where. Settings. Nope. Show creator. That's what it is. They changed the name of it at some point. Okay. So import views. I think what you need to do is just like select them all. And then, so I see what you're saying. Like you want them to populate on your sidebar as opposed to just, because these will put them in the view pool. It's not going to put them on here. I don't believe there's a way to make them do that. But you should be able to like, I guess what you would have to do is open the view pool after you import them. Where's the view pool? Here it is. So then you could assign, I think you can do assign, whoops, shortcuts on. Assign through, oh, wait, what? That didn't work. Through 4? Oh, okay. I think that's a bug. I don't think it should have put the @ in there. That made it fail. Let's do assign here. Okay, yeah. So I think if you type it in the command line though, assign view 2 through 4 at, that didn't work. Okay, so you can't do multiple. That's stupid, but you could create a macro that would just do it. And either way, like you could go through and do it without even opening the views pool, but you could create a macro and that would make it easier. And you could create that macro and export it and import it in your new show file and then just run the macro. So your macro would look something like assign view 1 at, what is this called? View button 1.5. So this is, because this is display 1, it's 1.5. You could do, so you would do assign this at 1.1, at 1.2, at 1.3, and then for your display 2 it would be 2 point, etc. So if there's anything more I can help with on that topic, let me know, but hopefully that helped. Alrighty. I don't need that screen at the moment. So I've created my dims, my dim pops, and then I'm going to copy these again, and I'm going to put them here. Okay, we don't like that. So it's doing some weird thing where it's trying to copy all of them. I know that because it did it the first time. I did this one through this one, and it moved all of these, which I wanted, but now I'm doing this one through this one, and it's trying to do all of these, and then it would be overriding those, which is why it gave me that pop-up. So I don't love that. Oh, that is true. Users, actually, there's even blah, blah, blah. You don't just have to save your users. What you can do is if you create a new user profile with the same name and the user with the same name, if you are moving a show file that has been used with that user, if you simply create one with the same name, then it will load everything for that user, if that makes sense. On the left, it's the second button down on the left in the user preferences that holds your info. I'm not sure what you're talking about. So at any rate, so like if you have a user profile, maybe your name on it, Tirza, that's my name. Okay, so I create a user profile and then I create a user named Tirza, and I set up all my views in that user. If I go to a different computer, I could, yes, export this user, and it's really the user profile that contains that information, but I could export this user profile and import it on the other one, but I don't have to. I can just go in and create one with the same name and create a user with the same name, and as long as the show file recognizes that user profile, just it having the same name will function as if it was the same one, if that makes sense. So that makes it pretty easy. I've done that before when I was working for Gateway. I remember I took the show file home, and this was on MA2 because on MA3 we didn't we always just used the admin, at least at my campus, because I created the show file, so we just used the admin. But on MA2 it had been set up to use a user profile called Gateway, and so when I took my show file home, I was like, wait, I don't have any of my views, and then I figured out, oh, it's because I need the user profile. So I just created one with the same name, because at this point I'm at home, right? Like I can't export that because I'm at home. So I just created one with the same name, and it populated everything. Okay, so these are being weird. I'm going to just do it this way. And then edit this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a, what's the word? There's like 3 different things that I've called it. Like a pop on, okay, like ramp on or ramp off is also a good term. Or ramp minus, ramp plus is obviously what we called them in MA2. I have gone through so many different phases of, okay, what do I call this? Because, I just don't know. Now that I think about it, I should create this based off of the other one instead of these ones, because these ones, I'm going to want the negative space as well. So these ones will have more in common. Okay, so I just want this one to transition in 0, and now we're done. And then I'm going to call it, I mean, it also doesn't look like a ramp because I have it all sine curve, but, Tirza gets all that Tirza has worked on as soon as the console goes online. I'm not sure what you mean exactly. Square waves. Okay. I'm going to call it ramp off. That's what I'm going to call it. No, that's not going to work in my brain. I'm going to call it pop on because that's what I've been calling them for a while. And so that's where my brain is going now. And then, okay. So as you can see, I'm finding the simplest way to replicate everything. So since I'm making a bunch of very similar presets, I'm making copies, and then I have the least number of steps to make it the new version. I'm going to try really hard to be focused and finish this and then check comments if there are any after I have finished. I'm not going to look at my other screen until I'm done with my project. That's what I'm going to do. Did I edit this one? Yes. One more. Okay. I mean username. Yes, so it just has to be the show file that has used that profile before, because if you're using a show file that's never seen that profile, then I don't think it has any data for that. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't know how it would have data for that. Presets, phasers, okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I want to copy these again and do pop offs. Also, the number of spaces here is just driving me crazy. You know what I'm going to do? I don't like that. There has to be a way to place them better. I mean, technically I could just rearrange them with a less number of columns. Wait, so actually, let me check this. So over here, if I go to add a phaser recipe and I'm going to look at this, is it always a consistent number of pool slots, or does it depend on the window size? It probably depends on the window size. Yep, okay. That's helpless. I mean, not helpless. It's not helpful. Whatever. What time is it? It's 3:06 here. I probably won't keep going for too much longer because I do have plans this afternoon, but I want to finish creating enough of this workflow that I don't forget how I was planning to do it. So I'm going to create presets now. That's what I'm going to do. To do that, wait, I don't need this open to do that. I need my preset pool. I said I was going to do this one. And then, stop it. Okay. And then I'm going to want my recipe editor. One thing I don't need is my encoder toolbar. So I'm going to get rid of that to give me some more space on screen. It's an interesting thing. You don't use the encoder toolbar very much at all when you're programming in recipes. So, okay. That gives me so much more space. I love that. But that's interesting. It does at least move those icons over when you have less space. Okay. Oh, I also need to create a matrix first. Let's do some matrix. What am I doing? I need the matrix pool. There we go. So this one I'm going to turn into specifically existing for one group of lights. Which group of lights should I do? So my washes, how many washes do I have? I have 12 washes. I feel like I've done too many show files lately, too many different show files. I can't remember how many I have of any fixture anymore. Okay, so 12. Now here's the neat thing, okay? So my speed is going to be based on the number of washes that I have, right? So since I have 12, it's going to be, here's my formula. 60 divided by 12. Now the reason why, okay, so I'm using Speedmasters, right? So So my speed master and my effect being 1-to-1 happens if my speed is 60. So 60, divide that by 12 because that's the number of fixtures I have. That's going to give me one light hitting the high point of the phaser once per measure if it's in 4-4, which we're going to go off of that assumption. So once per measure is not very fast. So I typically do twice that, which means multiply this by 2. The other option, of course, is to just divide it by 6. So that's going to be the number that I'm going to go for. You could also do by 4, but I usually find, and this is specifically more so with worship music, but I usually find that twice per measure is a good speed. So I'm going to do 10 BPM for my washes, and then this is my basic shuffle look, so I don't need anythings, but I'm going to change this to wash, shuffle, and then copy, and then I'm going to change this to, wait, how many spot fixtures do I have? I have 17 of them. So that's a little bit more complicated. We're going to do 60 divided by 17 times 2, which is 7.06. And then everything else can be the same. We just need to change the name to spots shuffle. And I will likely also later color code these with the same appearances I used here. So that's a start. Then we have our pixels. Now the pixels are a little more complicated because there's like so many of them. How many pixel bars do I actually have? It says 180 fixtures are selected. If there's 12 per pixel bar, that'll be 5 times 3. Because 60 is 5. Okay. So I have 15 of them. That sounds right, yes, because I had 8 and 7. So if I have 15 pixel bars, of course this would be for my pixels individually. However, 180, if I did it based on that, it would be super slow. So I'm going to try based on the number of bars that I have, and we'll just see how it looks. Oh, whoops, times 2. It'll be 8. So we'll go with that speed. That'll probably look pretty good. But then I can change this later. And see here, okay, I was starting to say this before as well, and I think I stopped. One of the things about having these matrix pool objects for everything is that if later, since the speed's based off of the number of fixtures that I have, later if I change the number of fixtures that I have, I can just go edit the matrix object speed, and everything will look right. So I'm going to want all of my phasers to reference these matrix. And this is something I've never had a part of my workflow before, which I could have. I just never thought about it. So I was always putting my speeds in my recipe phasers. So technically I could go change the recipe phasers, but that's a lot of recipe phasers to change, because I don't know if you saw my show file, but I had like a separate recipe phaser for every set of values, which right now we're using shapes for that, right? I don't know if any of y'all haven't been here the whole time, then you might not know. But this is a new workflow I just thought out in my head during this live stream, which you can go back and watch the thought process if you'd like. But I had this many universal presets and this many recipe presets for everything. So each universal preset had the values and the the form, basically. And then each recipe preset took each group of fixtures that I had. Oh, you're right, I'm so sorry. I'm not showing you guys what I'm doing. So I don't even know how much I missed showing you. I'm so sorry. I keep forgetting which screen I'm showing. Where was I? So my my pixels, I had a universal preset for each of these values, and then a recipe preset that would take each group and set it to this value, for instance, and then add a matrix. So my matrix were in that group, which isn't the smartest. You can always use a matrix object, and then you have that reference there as well. So if I ever changed like how many pixels I had, then I would have to go into every single recipe preset and change the speed to match. Now I can just update my one matrix, so I'm going to create recipe templates for each of these. I'm not going to create a recipe template for every single one of these. I'm going to create a recipe template for, say, this one with the matrix and the selection. And then when I'm programming, I will select that template and then I'll change the shape in order to change the values. I think that's going to be a really good workflow. Like I said, I just thought that out during this stream and I have not used it. I'm still in the process of setting it up, but I think that's going to work really well. So as far as actually creating that, I'm going to create a couple of other matrix options, but not at the moment. I'm going to make these first. So this one needs to have a different shape. Let's go with this one. And why didn't these update? These are supposed to update. Okay, maybe I need to delete this and start over. Okay, so now these are referencing the shape. So if I edit the shape, these will change. These are also referencing the shape. So if I edit the shape, these will change. And then my matrix are going to be referencing this, a matrix pool object, which is specific to the spots. Why did it turn red? I don't know what that means. It should not have turned red. Everything is matching up here. Do I need to cook it? You shouldn't need to cook it. Genuinely so confused as to why it's not working properly. Well, it's a recipe template. That shouldn't have anything to do with it. We have our selection. We have our values. Oh, is it because speed is coming from two places? It might be because it's getting speed from a matrix and technically there's speed in the shape. However, the speed in the shape should be set to basically none. Like it's set to none. So I don't understand that. Well, I can check and see if this will work to use in a queue as intended. So, like I said, this is set to be a recipe template, which means that when you click on it, you literally don't even select a group. You click on this, and then switch screens. We go in here, and it puts the recipe lines that are in there straight into the recipe editor. And this one's not red, so I'm not sure why it was red, but it was red. So the idea is I will have one of these for one of these presets for each selection and a matrix combination. And again, the matrix are tailored to the selection. And then I'll just have it with this shape in it, but I can go in here and I can change it. Hello? I don't know why it keeps giving me trouble on this. It lets me do it this way. I'm betting this is a bug. And then once I change it, then I can change it here. That's stupid. Deselect the selection, choose another, then swap back. That'll fix the other thing? Wait, let me start over again. So if I choose like so. Now this is gonna work. It does. Okay, you're right. That's weird. That has to be a bug. There's literally no way. Oh wait, is it because I don't know. Anyway, I'm glad that that's another solution because that's somewhat easier than doing this whole thing. But at any rate, I will essentially, I'll use my recipe template as just that, where we'll just take different values, but the values are coming from the shape rather than changing these because that's tedious in a phaser recipe. So I'm really excited about this workflow. I think it's going to be fantastic. And then let's go back to my other screen. Then I'm going to have a wash shuffle version, and I'm just going to copy this one. So this one is going to be washes, and then we're going to call it washes shuffle. And I'm going to change the matrix to wash shuffle. And now we have, and again, I will probably give these appearances. I'll give everything that's specific to a type of fixture an appearance. It fixes mostly everything, even the red outline. The red outline in here? Really? It did not fix that. Well, this isn't a red outline. I don't know what red outline you're talking about. I was hoping it would fix this. I still don't understand why this is working this way. It must have something to do with it being a recipe template. Oh, interesting. Toggling recipe template on and off. Adjusted that. Okay, well, I can do that. So, probably a bug too. Okay, so I've got both of those, and then I will create another one for the pixels. And another thing that I am thinking I'm going to really love about this workflow is the fact that you don't need to select a group first in order to put this into the recipe editor. So it's going to mean that I can, oh, I even just thought of something else. Okay, so hold that thought. So we have, what I can do is I can just have this pool open, no groups pool. I don't need a groups pool for anything once I'm operating. Have that open, and then I can, so two options. One option is just this. I don't know, I probably won't need more than this for the number of presets total once I finish, because it's just, in this case, I only have 3 groups. Well, I might make some for smaller groups, but a couple of groups with a few different matrix options. I don't have like a ton of them. And then I can just have the recipe editor full screen. So again, one selection, pull this in. Now I'm going to go shape, choose whichever one I want. I may be able to organize these better. And then, oh, interesting, you can also move things in the context area. Very interesting. All right, so I have this, I change this to whatever I want, stored in my queue. Again, that's like 3 clicks, but so little going on screen. I click my one thing, click here, click the shape I want, and then store it in my queue. All of my references to a matrix, selections, presets, shapes, all of those things are working really well. And then the other option, though, that I was going to mention is if I would like to forego the context area, and this might potentially be easier in some ways, I'm not sure. I could put my shapes pool here, open to the spot that I want it. I could potentially like have it be different depending on, I could have a different view for this depending on what attributes I'm working with. And then what I can do is this, and then assign, that should work, right? Oh wait, I was assigning the same one that was already there. I wonder, can you click anywhere on here? Yeah. So that could be another option. Unfortunately, it doesn't have like an edit recipe option, for phaser recipes, but this is pretty simple as well. That might even be easier than the other method. Just because you know that's the only thing that you're going to be changing. But this stays open to where you had it for as long as you have the recipe editor open. So that's pretty nice. And then it's just a click, not a swipey. You just have to click on this first. So that's the new workflow that I'm working on with the show file. I'm pretty pleased with it. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I think in order to really remember how I had this planned to work, I'm going to need to create a few more matrix options and presets before I finish for today. But let's see, I'm gonna want a phase 0 through 360. I'll do wait, I don't know what ones I want. Let's do one with blocks of 4 for my pixel bars, because I know that's something that I really like doing. And then definitely want that to be shuffled. I think I've been using this number a lot, I'm not sure. It's fine. So then speed, let's see, 60 divided by 15 is probably a fine speed for that as well. Wait, we'll do 8. We'll check it out later. I'm gonna do pixels block 4. And then I'm going to create a preset. Again, the only thing changing is this. And then let's assign some appearances. And this is annoying me, so I'm going to change this to washes shuffle, so it's consistent with everything else. There we go. I feel like this is really coming along. I am going to check out for today because it's been 2.5 very wonderful hours. Almost. It's been 2 minutes and 20 seconds. I mean, 2 hours and 20 minutes. Jeez, I am losing track of time very much. It's been 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I need to go on with the rest of my day. But this was really, really fun. I'm looking forward to getting my stream deck, and I think I have learned some things about setting up the stream that will help me to make the next one be nicer. But let's see, when will I do another one? Oh, I don't know when I'll do another one, because I was planning to release a video next week rather than doing a live stream. And then the following week, I am leaving the country on like Wednesday or something. So I'll be in Sweden for about 3.5 weeks. And that will be fun. If any of you are in Sweden, let me know. But I will be gone, so I will not be doing live stream at that point. I'll try to see if I can do one more before I leave, and then I will definitely get back into the flow of things once I get back at the end of August. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out with me today. Great job. Thank you. I think I figured out something pretty cool, so I will definitely have to make a focused, polished video on this topic later once I've fully established it, how my workflow works. But thank you guys for hanging out and figuring this out with me, and for all of the input and questions, and I will see you next time. Have a great rest of your day.